For those who do not know, there's this question which keeps coming up saying that which one should I get, a Sony A7 III or an A7R III? The big difference between the two is primarily resolution. But if you're a wedding photographer, I would wholeheartedly recommend that the A7 III instead of the A7R III. It's mainly because I find that 24 megapixels are more than enough for any wedding photography that you do. One second, guys. It's here, but we're now waiting for Better Photography to join in. Should I try some fancy filters? I don't think so. Madhavan, welcome.
Hey,
let's do this.
Finally, we're here. All right.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Awesome.
Sorry, guys. I mean, a lot of confusion there for a moment, but now we are on Joseph's live, and thank you for being with us, Joseph. Thank you for all this mess up. It's just
no problem. No problem.
Okay.
So there are 632 people tuned in right now.
Okay, wonderful.
It's incredible.
Okay.
Let's get this conversation going before the sun sets and my beautiful face light goes away. We were talking about the beginning of my career and how my time as a business school graduate how has it impacted my time as a photographer, correct?
Right.
Yeah, continuing that question, continuing that answer rather. So the first thing, firstly, for my parents, my biggest line of reasoning and what I told them when I quit my job was two things. The first thing was the fact that financially, right, I was going to be solid for them in the months to come. I think that was the first reassurance that I think it's very good if your parents are being skeptical, if they're being pragmatic and not idealistic in this scenario. I think you do need such voices in your life. I'm actually glad for that Indian culture of parents looking out for us and not letting us do all the mistakes that we traditionally would. So I'm really glad for that time. Then the second thing I told them is that this was a lifestyle choice. The fact that I am able to make time for myself because of this choice of career. Those was my two reasoning, by the way. It had nothing to do with art. It had nothing to do with weddings. Those are the two reasons that I gave them. And I'll tell you this, perhaps the first part did come true, but I'm not sure the second one of me finding time for myself ever came true during these 10 years, right? And it's during this lockdown that I've truly found the importance of time, whether it is even when you take only 45 minutes, like you were saying, doing the vessels and cleaning dishes, etc., and doing jadu, pocha, etc., right? There's so much time in a day that we take for granted. And there genuinely is, and you never realize that you had this time till somebody takes it away from you. Literally, that's what I've realized. So I treat every day. So there's this habit I've gotten into where literally every day I see the sunset because it's the end of a day. Otherwise, we can get into this endless cycle of just time being just this fluid construct of nothingness, right? So it's an end of a day. There's a beginning of a day. There are strict office hours that Devika and I have for ourselves. At least we are trying to keep that going, and we have strict lunch timings and everything else. And honestly, this time I've been more productive than ever, I think, ever in my life. And that's saying something, right? Yeah.
So from the point of where you began to now, I mean, I was, you had an interview with us some time back where you said, barely since a few months into starting with your practice of wedding photography, you were suddenly doing a lot of big weddings and international weddings.
Correct.
So usually, if you look at some of the most successful people, across the world, in India, even young successful people, if you look at their path and their progress, they usually have certain traits that they define for themselves that lead to their success. If I were to ask you, what were those three traits, or that three singular things that you actually did, three behaviors or three, let's say, three things that you really did that defined your success or that gave you your path to success, what would that be?
Loaded question. Okay, the first one's really easy. I think you nailed it on the head when you said that within a few months of me starting wedding photography, my entire career or my definition of wedding photography flipped over, and I was literally doing some of the biggest weddings in India. I think the first thing I learned is don't let who you're photographing be as important as what you're photographing. Let me explain this in the sense that don't let the object in your photos become more important than the photo itself, right? So I realized that the reason why people hired me, the reason why people loved my work in the early days and even today is there is a certain sense of realness, there's a certain sense of honesty, and there's a certain sense of happiness in my photos, of joy, and that should not that should never be greater than the people in those photos, irrespective of whether they're celebrities or anything else, right? Because that I think is a trap that you can fall into very quickly. You can let the person in your photos become a bigger object than everything else, than everything else in that photograph, and that is a genuine problem. And that was the first thing that I learned. The second thing that I learned is when opportunity strikes, when literally all the divine intervention, serendipity strikes in such a big way, right? You have to grab it with all of your heart and all of your soul. You can't be you can't be you have to be sure-footed essentially. You cannot be nervous, or you cannot actually you can be nervous, right? You can't be laid back essentially, because my main reason was my wedding career started in a time before social media was really big. It was literally the onset of the social media era in India, 2009, 2010, right? And I realized back then that one happy client leads to two more happy clients, essentially, on average. And that is how the avalanche effect happens, and that's how your business remains sustainable, right? So it's not like as if one really popular client comes along and they give you 10,000 odd clients. It's never like that. The very idea of a happy client, it was at the core of everything that I did. So irrespective of who the client was, it was still the idea of satisfaction and the idea of happiness in their own wedding photography, which I genuinely was genuinely in pursuit of. So those two things were huge. The third, and this is kind of an obvious one, is the fact that you or your brand is only as good as the rest of the team that you work with. Irrespective of whether you are somebody who's epic or somebody who's amazing, it comes down only to the kind of people you choose to choose to surround yourself with and choose to work with, because the final product that you deliver as a wedding photographer is not just your photos, but it's a mix of everyone's photos, correct? So, and in that case, you have to ensure that photo number 602 is as good as photo number 22. Right, literally, and a bride or a groom should not be able to tell the difference. That was one of the first things that I wrote down for myself, and trust me, Madhavan, back then it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy because a lot of people, I approached a lot of photographers whose work I genuinely loved, and the first reaction was, weddings not my scene. I was like, no, come on, give it a shot. And somehow over time, like literally, Sohail Ali Rizvi, he's not a wedding photographer, he's a filmmaker. But I met him at a party, he was a cinematographer, and that was literally what he told me. He's like, Joe, wedding's not my scene. I was like, dude, just come along to one of the weddings that we do, see the way we shoot it, and just tell me after that if you don't have fun. I think that because my approach since the beginning of my career always has been to shoot weddings like from the perspective of a friend. Right? So which means to have fun at the wedding, to truly enjoy the time that family is having, and let the photographs be a reflection of that. Back to you.
So if I had to ask you, what is the one thing that you really enjoy at a wedding? What would that be? Would it be the drama? Would it be the mystery of you being a stranger at somebody else's life? What would that one thing be?
It's none of them actually. It's this in my journey now. I've gone through already through 2 years of my wedding photos, and if there's one common strain that I find in all of them of my personal reflection at a wedding, it's actually family. I love, and I have never voiced this out before, right? And I'm voicing it now because I'm starting to see it more and more in my work. I cannot tell you how much I enjoy spending time with families at the weddings that I shoot, because I genuinely love seeing them so excited about one of their close ones taking a big leap of faith in their lives, right? Literally, and trust me, I think that's
Right.
the strongest difference between an Indian wedding and a Western wedding. Because I have shot a wedding where the mother of the bride did not appear, did not even come to the wedding because she needed to take a 6 hour long flight. There were no Indians at that wedding, just so you know, right? But typically at every wedding that we shoot, irrespective of who it is, however big the celebrity is, however big the wedding is, at the end of the day, it comes down to that family. And you can see that level of anxiety, that nervous happiness that is there, because it's not just the bride who's facing it. It's the father, it's the uncle, it's the aunt, it's the cousin, it's all of that, and it's the closest friends as well. I love it, man. I love it, and I think I wouldn't be wrong in saying this if I say that for a brief period of time, for 4 to 5 days, we are accepted as part of that family. To be able to make the kind of photos that we do, and that I think is like the biggest honor and biggest privilege that anybody can give you.
Does that happen with all your weddings where you get accepted as a member of their family?
Excellent.
Okay, let me just follow that. Let me just follow that up with another question, because from everything that I've spoken to with other photographers, who've done big weddings are actually very challenging. It is not as you don't have the same level of freedom even as maybe a smaller middle class wedding. Where a photographer is actually treated with a hell of a lot of respect. A photographer can actually go sometimes in a big wedding. I've been told that even access to certain areas are not even given. So how is it with big weddings? It's a question that a lot of photographers actually want to know. Even a lot of generally people want to know, what is it like with a big wedding?
Madhavan, I'm actually going to turn the clock back a bit. Go back to your previous question. The reason why I seemed uncomfortable is because actually that question is not the answer to that question doesn't lie on the other side. It lies on this side, right? Empathy is a two-way street. When I say that families accept us as part of their family, etc., I genuinely find that empathy is a two-way street, in the sense that it's not about them accepting us. It's about me allowing them to accept me, right? If that makes sense. Just that difference, just that little bit of, I need them, I should allow them, irrespective of who they are, I should allow them to make them feel like I'm part of them, right? It's going to a wedding believing in that. So when you say that and I'm sure that is true, I'm sure that there are access issues with some big weddings, etc. But I'm saying that almost like a supposition, because I have not faced that. Because the cornerstone of my wedding photography is to make friends with the bride and groom, irrespective of who they are, right? Some of the biggest weddings that I've shot, and I'm not going to take names here, where the father of the bride and the father of the groom, and these are like insanely powerful people. At the end of the day, that I see that irrespective of whether, as you're saying, a middle class wedding or a smaller wedding or that wedding which every publication has spoken about, the father of the bride and the father of the groom are still the father of the bride and the father of the groom. They're still excited to see the wedding photos, right? They genuinely are. They are the first ones to ask me about ki photos kab aane wale hain, right? They're also the first ones to hold their daughter's hand when she's walking out for the vidai. Again, all of these are only possible because I am open to the idea that these are regular human beings, right? Yes, the clothes they're not wearing are, they're wearing are some next level stuff. Yes, the car that vidai is being performed in is fancier than the usual, etc. But at the end of the day, they're just people, right? So there's this thing that I had written down a while ago. I think 2 years ago, when I was shooting one of the biggest weddings of my career. And it was during the mandap, when I was sitting at the mandap, right? And I wrote this down to myself saying, the only reason I do this is because I believe in love, right? Because if I do not believe in love, if I do not believe in the fact that the people in front of me are just human beings, the photos that I make will not reflect that. They will reflect that. They will be more grand, they'll be more dramatic, they won't be regular photos, right? I think that's been my biggest strength, this ability to just step into a wedding, spend time with the bride and groom, spend time with the families. And I wouldn't say I've forced myself in there. It's just, if you believe in love, you will believe in empathy as well. and then you will find it. Like I'm going to end this off with a small little anecdote. In fact, I was at a wedding recently where the other photographer there came up to me and said, this is a few months ago, or last year, something like that. Okay, where there's another photographer there, and the photographer comes up to me and literally says, the groom must be so lucky because the bride's family is so big, right? And I was like, it's funny, right? Because I don't see it like that. All I'm seeing is father, mother, daughter, son, right? That's literally all I'm looking for. And I think it's really helped me. It's really helped me. If photographers are tuning in, everybody asks me what lens I use, etc. Right? This is the lens that I use. This is the lens. It is the core of this. It's the core of every photo that I make. So everything else is secondary. All the drone shots, all the dramatic portraits, and all that is secondary. This is what it comes down to, because that means that irrespective of the size of the wedding, you're still going to get the same kind of photos that you will always get. Sorry, but can I just add on to this point? I just realized something that you said. There is a certain misconception rather, among a lot of photographers, that the smaller weddings will give you better moments. Okay, you mentioned that, and I think that is something that a lot of people almost take it for granted, right? Let me tell you this: irrespective of the scale of the wedding, it only comes down to the people that you shoot. So you can find yourself at a really small, intimate wedding where you're still treated like shit. Right? I mean, that's how it is. You're a wedding photographer. You're at a really tiny 10 people kind of wedding, and somebody there says, "Hey, अरे भैया photo लेना मेरा." नहीं तो और they'll be like, "अरे भैया हटो ना, मुझे यहाँ से photo लेना है." हो सकता है यार, हो सकता है. The probability of that happening doesn't change just because there are 10,000 people or 10 people. It's just people, right? And I think that's like I can't stress more on that fact, about the fact that people are people, right? And how you treat them it'll come back to that. And yeah, and just try and go there and make friends. Yeah, that's all it comes down.
So that has occurred to me so many times, even at a non-wedding situation. Okay, you're carrying a camera, that means you're a photo wala, So, but that's nice, In fact, I try and humor them as well, because it's funny for me too. Taking care of those guys who say, "Hey, come here, photo le lo."
There's a 3 words phrase that V. Gwen, the founder of Fearless, said to me in one of our classes, which is "be of service." Right? Be of service. Be of service, because we are service providers. End of the day, we are being paid for that service. Yes, we are artists, right? But don't let the service be forgotten. Always keep the service above the art, and treat the art like a privilege. Like I mean, I'm sure you can answer this question better than me. But tell me, which other genre of photography pays you to put art, to make art, while still earning like good money from it on a day in and day out basis? That's insane, man.
Correct.
Because every other genre comes with like huge lists of briefs and mood boards and references. Here you're literally paid to have fun.
Right, absolutely. So two more questions come to mind, again related to the earlier question. One is, you mentioned that that connection that you have with the people who you're photographing and the families. The connection is what defines your photography, and it is not the big drama. But again, referring to an earlier interview that you had with us with Better Photography, where you mentioned that there was a point of time back in 2015 where you did get into a kind of a rut, because you were trying to make every image more dramatic than the last, until you came to certain realizations, and until you got away from the spiral. So again, coming to that, a couple of questions there. One, what did you learn from that? Is drama versus nuance, posed versus unposed, the unstaged versus the staged, all of that. Where did photography eventually lead you? Where are you right now, as far as photography is concerned? And how did you get out of the rut? That is actually one of the questions that a lot of wedding photographers are asking now.
True, true. Okay, so the rut that Madhavan's referring to is something that I didn't even know was one till I came across it, right? Till I just looked back at the kind of photos that I was making and realized that every wedding that I was going to, I was more keen on making the next big photo, right? Literally the next big photo that I'd post on Instagram. And I forgot everything else that I said on this very chat right now, which is the fact of making photos for family, making photos for the bride and groom more than making photos for oneself, right? The way I got about it was complete chance. Out of it was complete chance, Madhavan. I ended up meeting Erica, Lani, Frank, Susanna at a conference in Goa called Silk Inspire, organized by Sefi. And honestly, I could not even. The things that I expected to learn from that conference versus the things that I walked away with are completely diametrically opposite. What I walked away with was this. What I walked away with was it's not the scale of the weddings. It's not the kind of weddings that you're shooting. It's the kind of connections you're able to make, and hence the photographs that will result from those connections, right? But that said, Shiva is also on this chat, and he also has this beautiful line, which is there is this. Basically, we are all most wedding photographers will tell you this, right? Making extraordinary out of ordinary, right? But when the day when extraordinary itself presents itself in front of you, you have to do justice to it as well. This is something that Shiva said 3-4 years ago, and that still sticks in my head because I am literally part of extraordinary again and again and again, right? So if you, and this is what I suggest to all wedding photographers tuning in, look at your wedding delivery as almost like a cooking recipe of sorts, right? It needs a little bit of everything. It's not one ingredient that you're just boiling and just giving it away. It's not just all family photos. It's not just all loving photos. It's a little bit of everything, because you are the only way that the bride and groom are going to look back at their wedding as. And if they had a grand wedding, they should see a little bit of that grandness. They shouldn't see only just the grandeur, right? They should see a little bit of the boredom that people had at their wedding. They should see a little bit of the food that they ate at that wedding. They should see a little bit of the family love, of the group shots and everything else. They should see a little bit of the couture that was present at the wedding. And on top of all this, the core, like a good biryani, is the rice, right? And the meat, which is basically love. You see the love, and yeah, a little bit of the ceremonies as well. But if you view your wedding photography like that, which is a little bit of everything, then you will for sure be able to give a balanced view on these things. I wouldn't say one is more important than the other. So it has to be a good mix.
So you're referring to photography as a grand, beautiful dish of biryani. You're the second photographer to refer to it that way. The first being Prashant Panjyar.
Oh,
who called it, pulao,
that's the only thing I know how to cook, by the way. Now I don't know how to make a biryani. That is still like I know how to make a good pulao. So good, nice.
Okay, so what are some of the biggest challenges that you face with a wedding? With the typical wedding assignment. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the let me just sort of rephrase that. So when you enter into a wedding assignment, what would be the things that you look out for the most?
Okay.
What would be the first things that you look out for?
I think the first thing I look out for is just having a word with the bride and groom, who by that time already are people who know me, because I would have had at least a couple of conversations with them, right? So the first thing is to actually have a final icebreaker kind of a conversation with them again, right? So this is just before picking up the camera and shooting away. That's the first thing I need to do, and just going and telling a hi to everyone. The next thing is ensuring that my team members are clearly introduced as well as part of this endeavor, right? That the bride, say Rahul, knows that Jameer is going to be photographing his side of the wedding through the rest of the events, or the bride, whose name may be Neha, might be photographed by, say, Harsha, so I have to introduce them. I have to get them to know them as people, as human beings again, so that the rest of the days I don't have to do this again. That's number one. The second is just having a word with the planners to ensure that everything's going on time and things are, and if there are any last minute surprises that have been planned in advance, it's something good that we should know, right? I'm being very practical about this, no fluff. The rest of the time, I think for me, more than anything else, if there are two things that I am always concerned about, is one is if I'm truly focused about at the event that I'm shooting, right? The reason I say this is because I think I'm not sure about other photographers, but I myself face this because you might be at a very grand Sangeet in life. Things might be happening, great things might be happening around you, but you as a photographer can be tuned out. Trust me, you can be tuned out. You can, and that tuning out can happen due to multiple reasons, either personal factors or due to just thinking about gear and technique so much, thinking should my lens be 60 degrees to the right or 45 degrees to the left? Should be 1 by 16th power or 1 by 32th power? All these things are unnecessary, right? So I'm continuously asking myself and seeing the things that I'm shooting and the event that I'm in. I'm constantly worried about that. The second one is, and it might sound funny, but I'm 36 now, right? I've been doing this for 10 years. And it's genuinely to hydrate myself to just keep the stamina going, because I know that irrespective of whether it's a 4-hour shoot or an 8-hour shoot, the best photo of that moment can happen at any time, and you have to be 100% there. So the first part is actually emotionally being present. The second part is physically being present, right? And those two are my only concerns during a wedding, because my lenses, my camera gear, all of those challenges are simplified. I'm a guy who only shoots with 3 lenses at any point in time. So 2 lenses are on the 2 cameras that I'm shooting, and the second one is in a bag. Or if I have a single camera, 1 lens is on the camera, 2 more lenses are in the bag. I never have more than that. I don't even have a backup plan types during this where I'm keeping a large bag of photography, lenses somewhere else, because all that is just it's just confusion, man. The other 2 things are far more important: emotionally being present, physically being present, right? Back to you.
Okay, this may sound like a very silly question, but which are those 3 lenses that you have with you?
No, not at all. One is a wide or an ultra wide. So it's either a 16-35 or a 24 The second is a mid, which is it's either a 35 or a 50 And the last one is a very lightweight tele lens. So it's usually an 85 1.8. It's no more than that, because I don't even have a 135. I know Sony, who I'm an ambassador of, make a brilliant 135 lens, but I use an 85 1.8, by the way, not even a 1.4, because again, it has to be in a bag on my shoulder, 6 hours, shoulder should not get tired, simple. So it's usually a 35 1.8, a 55 1.8, 85 1.8, a 24 1.4, and a 16-35 2.8. Those are 5 lenses in all, out of which I'll only use 3 based on the mood.
So do you normally use primes all the time, or is it something?
It's almost my ultra wide, the 16-35 is the only zoom that I have, and that also I use like a bag of primes. It's a 16, 21, 28, 35. Literally, that's how I use it. Because I literally put the marker on the lens and shoot with it. So because again, during these things, when I keep the lens when I bring the camera to my eye, like zooming in, zooming out is something that I don't want to be thinking about during that time, right? It's more about just getting that composition right before I even pick up the camera.
Right.
Yeah.
So Joseph, you've been a judge with the Sony Better Photography Wedding Photographer contest. You were a judge. You were a finalist judge last year.
Yeah.
You were going to be a judge this year as well, but unfortunately, because of the COVID-19 situation, things are on hold at this point of time.
Yeah.
But the common thing, so you and Prakash Talukani were joint judges for the very final round of the judging. One of the things that I noticed about both of you, you as well as Prakash. Of course, Prakash also shoots some of the largest and biggest weddings in India. So do you. One of the common things that I noticed about both of you was that both of you put sort of it's like a stop, a point at which you won't accept a photo if the photo cannot be accepted by the family. So a photo that makes the family happy is the photo that you will deliver. If the photo does not do that, no matter what, it does not really go, even if it's an award-winning or a prize-winning photo.
Hmm.
So this is something that was expressed by Safi as well, in one of his previous talks, that necessarily an award-winning photo or a beautiful photo may not be the kind of photo that you would deliver to the family.
Hmm.
And at the same time, the photo that you would make, so the edits that you would make, is clearly something that would necessarily make the family happy because it's the job. Is this how you view editing your photos? Is this how you make your selections?
Yes and no. A lot of what you said is absolutely spot on. That said, I view, let's take one event at a wedding. So to make this even clearer, let's take the wedding day, right? The wedding day itself will have typically, I'm ignoring the haldi bit of it. I'm literally starting in from where the bride and groom get into their sherwanis and lehengas, right? So, so that would start with the getting ready, go on to the barat, go on to the bride entry, groom entry, the varmala. From the Varmala, the second entry onto a mandap, if there is that little gap. Then at the mandap, the pujas begin, feras happen, sindoor happens, Mangal Sutra happens, and Viday and all the blessings happen, Ashirwad, and then it's pack up time. It's Viday, right? The thing is, in everything that I've told you, this is about 300 odd images. Let's take 250 to 300 odd photos, right? In that 250 to 300 odd photos, going back to my Palau example, and Prashant sir's wording of Palau is what I'm going to go with, right? There will definitely be a few photos, I think, which may not make sense to a family. I'm saying this out loud because I have noticed that when we post a wedding blog on our stories Instagram, right, versus a bride and groom selecting photos from their wedding to submit to a wedding portal of sorts, say a Wedding Sutra, Wed Me Good, etc., right? Versus the photos that they choose for their wedding album, right? So the three completely different things. And trust me, the photos in all three can look dramatically different. You won't even think they're the same photographer, by the way. So I think for me, what it comes down to is in that 300 odd photos, about 15 to 20 photos which are purely from the vision of the photographer, which would mean disregarding everything I've said so far in this conversation, which is being of service, looking at making photos for the family, everything else. And actually going back to not making photos for awards also. That's not what I'm talking about. Making photos for oneself, which would mean maybe I saw a Bharat member, during the Bharat, one of the guys who holds the ladis, say maybe he liked the music and he did a jig, maybe, right? Or maybe it was on a hot summery evening in Delhi. It was 40 degrees, dry heat, and he's just wiping the sweat off his bro. I take a photo of that. That will still make it to the set because it is my client's discretion on what they do with the photo. It's not harmful, right? End of the day, it's not harmful. Right. They can just press the next button to it, right? If it is a situation, if it's a kind of photo which they genuinely dislike, then it's a conversation that I need to have with the bride and groom, right? But in more often than not, photos that might mean something to you may mean nothing to the bride and groom, which is fine because I'm viewing the set as a whole. I am, as long as I still have those 290 odd photos which are purely there for the service bit, I'm okay with making 10 photos during that day. Right? And trust me, Madhavan, a lot of the photos that I show online are those 10 photos. Okay. They're not the 290. They're not the 290 right. Because I am not talking to other photographers on just being a better service provider because at the end of the day, that's not inspiring enough. I think the path to making those 10 photos, right, is more important than those 10 photos itself. The path to making those 10 photos is keeping your mind open. The path to making those 10 photos is being a photographer while still being a good friend, while still being a family member of sorts, right? And trust, again, those photos don't happen at every wedding also. And that's fine because I'm still making photos, right? At the end of the day, if I can walk away from a wedding having made all the photos that are expected of me as a wedding photographer, brilliant. But I will top this off by saying that brides and grooms hire me because of the work they see on Instagram, right? Because of the work they see on social media, because of this myth that is built on social media. And what are those photos that I am posting on social media? They're not the usual. They're not the usual 290 odd photos. They're still those 10 photos, right? Whether it's a champagne bottle flying in the middle of air, which is something I recently posted. They're not hiring me to make that photo, no, Baba. But I'm still making it. Again, it's not something that the family likes. I know for a fact that the groom's father doesn't get two shits about that photo. He doesn't care, but I'm making it, right? And I'm fine with that. It's fine. Because if he calls me and tells me, Joe, why is this photo of this random bottle here? I'm like, sir, just press next, big deal. That's what I'm going to go with. Yeah.
Just to again look at what you just said, I think that there is an element which I believe that a lot of wedding photographers in general in India, I've spoken to various groups of wedding photographers. One of the things that I think that is visible in your photography is that element of love. Which is that little intangible thing. It's not something that you can really pinpoint. But it's that little intangible thing which actually makes its presence really felt. And that happens to be, I believe, missing in a lot of wedding photography from a lot of wedding photographers.
I completely agree. Agree. I couldn't. Yeah, you finish your question though.
No, please. You were saying.
No, I completely agree. Like going through the photos in the Better Photography competition last year, right? With Prakash, it was a brilliant experience, and overall, I kept stressing on this one thing: is that irrespective of whether your photo has like the best sunset you've ever seen, it has the best rainbow you've ever seen. Right? It has a dragon which flew off from the Game of Thrones set and just flew over your bride and groom. Irrespective of all of that, if the core idea of love is not present in your photo, then what is the point? If you can make this dramatic sunset wala photo with the bride and groom that tiny, but you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna zoom in. I'm gonna see how that bride and groom are interacting with each other. What is the chemistry between them? Because that's the only thing I care about. Everything else is the gobbledygook that we people talk about. Yeah, like if Raj Lalwani was here, we would have big conversations about deep conversations about composition, about meaning, and a whole bunch of other things. But for me, it's love, man. It's love, right? I think that's what wedding photography for me is about. If that core ingredient is missing, there's no point in making that photo itself, right? And that's what I would urge every photographer to do as well. Is to just look at your photos. Because say, for example, and I'm just doing a mock photo here. Say this is a bride who's facing the camera. This is a groom who's facing off to the side. This is like this fancy pose that you're doing, right?
I know. Yeah.
I'll look at it and I'll be like, hey, that's nice. Can I see the rest of the set? Right? That's what I'll do. Because for me, it's love. And I think a large part of the photos that I am known for have that element of it, and I'll be honest in appreciating that part also, right? Literally, like my best photos have love in them, and if they don't, they're not my best photos, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Just to follow up on that question, you interacted with many photographers. You've seen, of course, the judging of the wedding photographer of the awards. You've also seen a lot of photographers. You've had teams of award-winning photographers work with you. So as a sort of a constructive criticism to wedding photographers at large, what would you say are some of those points that they should really, really keep in mind? Of course, love being the one thing, and you have to be able to show that should be visible in your frame. Otherwise, what's the point of a wedding photo? But what would you say would be some of the criticisms that you have for wedding photographers at large?
It's a tough one, no, because I can't generalize in essence. Like the only thing I can give is advice, I guess. The only thing I can literally give is advice, and my advice would be in your wedding delivery, in your wedding albums, literally stick to this idea of balance, right? Curate the hell out of them. Literally curate the hell out of them. Spend more time curating than editing. That's what I would suggest, in fact, because a lot of people spend a lot of time editing, adding more color, adding more stuff. But the ingredients are more important than how much you overcook them and undercook them, right? So
Absolutely.
it literally edit or curate your photos a lot more, because that will also give a lot more joy to the bride and groom who are going through each of your photo sets, right? And be creative in the curation as well. Just because an event happened at a certain period of time doesn't mean it has to be represented chronologically as well, right? If you're looking at 100 photos to tell the story of an event, feel free to play around with that chronology. Almost like look at it like a filmmaker, put those photos in a chronology together, and come back to me if your brides and grooms don't enjoy that process more than dumping photos on them, right? I think we're in a very bad habit of we do not think like cooks, or we wedding photographers today are restaurants, DIY restaurants. Does that make sense? Right? So wedding photographers are DIY restaurants. You walk into this restaurant and you're given a bunch of semi-cooked stuff, and you're like, do what you will with your imagination with it. I don't think that's how it works. That's not how it works at all. You want to give a true Michelin star experience. Present your dishes the way they're meant to be presented. And I know this has nothing to do with what you asked me. You asked me what people should look for in their images. I'm going the other way, saying look at your stories. Look at your stories. Look at your photos as stories. Don't just look at them as individual photos, right? And if you can walk away with that, then you've built that killer restaurant, yeah.
Very, very nice. Yeah, I think
Should we wrap on this?
That answer a lot.
It's 7:05.
Okay, one last question, because it's an important one.
Okay.
So we are stuck. We are obviously at the point where we are in the COVID. I think we are at the point of COVID-19 where India is slowly sort of slowing down, but the future is very much uncertain. I think what is definitely certain from all the experts saying that is our lifestyle and the situation that we are in is going to completely change. Social distancing is going to become the norm of the day, and that is not for now. It is possibly even going to be this way for the next 5 years. Now, in this kind of a scenario, where do you think wedding photography is heading? You obviously, I think you must have thought about this. What is happening with, let's say, with your plans and your wedding clients and the things that you have in your calendar? How are you working this out? And what should wedding photographers really do, to ensure that they sustain? Because right now, a lot of wedding photographers are very worried, about the future.
Absolutely. I mean, I think they should be worried. I think if you're not worried, you're being overly optimistic. It's better to be, as business owners, not just photographers, as business owners, this is the time to be cautious. This is the time to be pragmatic, right? So where I will come in with this is, one, look at all your spendings. My brother Joshua Karthik has written a beautiful blog on this, on things that wedding photographers and small business owners should do during the coronavirus struggle, literally, that we find ourselves in. You should, and I'll link to it later. I'll put up a story for this. But apart from that, I think as photographers, look for, firstly, get your collections right, finish all your deliveries. This is business as usual. This is the time you should have ramped up your speed, found more optimizations to literally deliver your photos and videos and get your collections in place. Next, for the season to come, I'm not an oracle by any means, but I genuinely think weddings are going to get smaller in scale, right? Just because guest sizes are going to reduce, right? In that case, the massive part of a variable spend of a wedding, which is guest spends, which could be food, catering essentially, or hotel stay, etc., is going to drastically reduce. If that is going to reduce, that means the overall cost of spend of the wedding itself is going to reduce, right? Which might mean that it might have an impact on all other service vendors, amount of money they're willing to spend, including photography, videography, everything else. So if that's the case, then you should look for ways to optimize your own business, correct? So those are the things. When I say optimize, I mean cutting down on unnecessary spends, delivering better value in the smaller scale weddings, seeing what other things that you can present to a bride and groom during this time. If you have to do stuff during this time, it would be in preparation for the wedding season to come, we don't even know how that's going to look like, right? You have to be ready to add on a few other almost new products, right? They could be day in the life of, they could be, I don't know, a photo shoot every other 6 months or anything just to celebrate life, right? And a whole bunch of other things. But this is a time to look for alternate revenues. Yeah.
Right.
I think you have a lot of time on your hands now. And I don't, honestly, Madhavan, I might sound pessimistic, but this might go on for much longer than we anticipate. And during this time, there is no point in almost like worrying over the time to come. It's better to skill up and get prepared. Right? This is a great time that we're blessed with. Spend that time judiciously is what I would say.
That's wonderful. That's a good bunch of ideas right there.
Thank
you so much, Joseph.
Thank you, Madhavan.
And to all the Better Photography viewers, this is Joseph Radek, who has come up with a wonderful. This video will be available online for the next 24 hours on Joseph's channel, but it will also be available on Better Photography's Facebook page and on our website. Joseph, please send us a video.
I'll do that. Yeah.
And finally, just as one little thing, because we have so many viewers still online, the COVID-19 situation is being fought on the front lines by some very brave people, including photographers, media people. But let's also not forget that there are a lot of people who are being affected very negatively by it too. These could be people who work at our homes and sweepers, and so it would be our prerogative, in fact, something that it would be very nice for us to do as photographers is to look out for these people and take care of them, because just as much as we depend on them, they also depend on us. Just a short message that I would like to deliver to all photographers out there: be compassionate. So stay safe, stay compassionate, and stay indoors. Thank you so much, Joseph. It's been a real pleasure. After all those goof ups, I think it's been a wonderful talk.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.